A blunt warning from Moscow has reignited fears of a wider Russia-Europe war. Putin ally and deputy chair of Russian Security Council Dmitry Medvedev lashed out at France and its allies, accusing them of pushing Europe towards direct conflict. His remarks followed new plans by Britain and France to deploy troops to Ukraine after a ceasefire. Dmitry Medvedev, Russia's former president, issued a sharply worded post on X targeting France and other European governments. He accused what he called Europe's ruling elites of deliberately pushing the continent toward war. Medvedev dismissed proposals to send Western troops into Ukraine, saying Moscow has repeatedly made its position clear. Russia, he warned, will never accept European or NATO forces operating on Ukrainian soil. Medvedev's message ended with a chilling line. "Come on then, this is what you'll get." Attached to the post was a video showing several large explosions, filling the screen with fire and shockwaves. He slammed Macron, accusing him of indulging in what he calls pathetic bullshit by speaking of troop deployment. The warning came just days after Britain and France announced plans for a multinational force in Ukraine should a ceasefire be reached. French President Emmanuel Macron said the deployment could include thousands of French troops. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said the move would create a legal framework for Allied forces to operate on Ukrainian soil. The plan includes securing Ukraine's skies and seas and rebuilding its armed forces to deter future attacks. Russia's foreign ministry also responded swiftly, calling the Western plans militaristic and increasingly dangerous. Moscow warned that any foreign troops, bases, or military infrastructure inside Ukraine would be considered foreign intervention. Such deployments, the ministry said, would pose a direct threat not only to Russia, but to Europe itself. Russia declared that any Western forces on Ukrainian territory would be treated as legitimate combat targets. Despite Moscow's warnings, Ukraine's allies say they are pressing ahead. At a major meeting in Paris, leaders from Europe pledged expanded support for Kyiv. The plan includes layered international security guarantees, training, equipment, and air, land, and sea backing. Officials say the goal is to deter any future Russian attack and bring an end to the nearly 4-year-long war.
This is a vital part of our ironcast commitment to stand with Ukraine for the long term. It paves the way for the legal framework under which British, French and partner forces could operate on Ukrainian soil, securing Ukraine's skies and seas and regenerating Ukraine's armed forces for the future. We discussed these issues in detail today, and so I can say that following a ceasefire, the UK and France will establish military hubs across Ukraine and build protected facilities for weapons and military equipment to support Ukraine's defensive needs. And with our coalition partners, we've also agreed significant further steps. First, that we will participate in US-led monitoring and verification of any ceasefire. Second, we will support the long-time provision of armaments for Ukraine's defence. And third, we will work towards binding commitments to support Ukraine in the case of a future armed attack by Russia. Are still ahead. So we're here today to keep driving that effort forward. But we can only get to a peace deal if Putin is ready to make compromises. And so we have to be frank. For all Russia's words, Putin is not showing that he's ready for peace. Over the last few weeks, we've seen the opposite. Further horrific strikes on Ukraine, killing and wounding civilians, and cutting off power for millions of people in the dead of winter. His forces hit a hospital in Kyiv just yesterday. And he's tried to distract from peace efforts with unfounded claims of attacks on his residence.
And I know there's a reluctance to talk about Greenland today.
On the question of Greenland, I've been very clear as to what my position and the position of the UK government is, both in statements I made myself yesterday and in the statement that was put out earlier today. I've been equally clear that the relationship between the UK and the US is one of our closest relationships, particularly on issues on defence, security and intelligence. And we work with the US 24/7 on those issues.
This meeting seals today a significant step forward reflected by the Paris Declaration, which provides robust security guarantees for a solid and lasting peace. This declaration by the coalition of the willing marks for the first time that operational convergence has been achieved among the 35 member states of the coalition, including Ukraine and the United States of America, in building robust security guarantees. The presence today of President Trump's special envoys, the commitments made by President Trump himself, particularly what he said during the meeting held in Mar-a-Lago late last year with President Zelensky, demonstrate the United States' commitment to building peace and assuming its responsibilities. This coalition of the willing marks a new phase that I believe aligns with our position and, moreover, is consistent with American wishes. American support and participation are very important for many countries. They are very important for many countries that are members of NATO. They are very important because American capabilities, sometimes with exclusivity on certain components of these security guarantees, make them key. Recent weeks have marked a change since there has been an American commitment.